I didn't have an answer to that question for quite a long time. So I'm about to pay this gentleman the biggest compliment I can pay anybody. I've always been a fan. Let me set up my old school frame first. I told you Zig Ziglar was my man. When it came to storytelling, Zig Ziglar was my man. But there was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn. I don't know if you ever heard Jim Rohn. Look up Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn, what I loved about Jim Rohn is he stood behind a lectern and he could captivate you for hours. He was that powerful. And so about a couple of years ago, I knew of a guy who wrote a book, Start With Why, Simon Sinek, right? And I read the book and I loved the book. And then I started reviewing some of his speeches. Because here's a guy, here's what kills me about Simon Sinek, and this is a compliment in every which way. Here's a guy who appears to have no style, but yet he is so captivating. If you see a Simon Sinek presentation, I mean, he pretty much stands still, doesn't really move. He tells great stories. Maybe uses a couple of visuals on a board, or some white, a flip chart that he has, just scribbles a couple of things, but he stands still. He has this boyish charm / charisma, and his storytelling ability is amazing because, again, there's no animation. It's almost like, just straight. And I'm sitting there going, I remember there was one speech I watched it like 3 times. Yes, even I study people. I watched it 3 times. You go, what does he do? What does he do? And I realized it has nothing to do with the kinesthetic part of it. It had everything to do with his storytelling ability, and then the data that he used to back it up, and the application and point that he would actually make. So right now, to me, he is an impressive speaker. Because it's like, there's a lot of good speakers out there. By the way, I believe there's talkers. Anybody can talk. There's a lot of talkers out there. People just blah, blah, blah. But I like people to me, a real speaker is somebody who has something well thought out and just can bring you along. And, an hour goes by like that. Compare that to, let's say, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk, I feel like he's screaming at the audience. I love Gary like 5-7 years ago. Today, I feel like he's screaming at people or yelling or scolding them or being the master of the obvious. It's like, if you don't give people insight, and he's probably going to listen to this and go, who is this Victor guy, right? But there was a time he would give great insight. Today, I find his stuff has gone very flat and almost predictable. Where Simon Sinek, you're like he tells his Navy SEAL story, and you're like, where are you going with this? And even I'm hooked. Even I know what he's doing to me, I'm hooked. And so I give you those two as comparisons because I think Gary's good at, if you're like, yeah, grind it out, hustle, man. Got get it done. Swear. If that's your style, that's cool. But I think the art of storytelling, he lacks. Simon Sinek, to me, is a guy who really knows how to tell great stories and just pulls you along ever so gently. Then when he finally gets there, you're like, oh, that was nice. You know what I mean? That was nice. And you don't feel fatigued or irritated.